to screen at the film festival. They played the first 4 episodes. And I'm not somebody who really keeps up with web series. I'd seen a few. The most I think that I was really struck by web series was just how sloppy and ugly and undisciplined they were. And I didn't realize that people were actually doing things of the kind of quality that the outs was. They were anywhere from 12 to 17-minute episodes, and they were structured not like a sitcom per se, but like a comedy television show. The acting was wonderful, even though I had never heard of any of these people. The writing was fantastic. It looked professionally shot. It just looked professionally put together. And I thought, wow, people are doing this. Is this what's going on the web now? And I started investigating, and really kind of on a lark, I dragged those scripts out of the drawer and started reformatting them for this particular genre, and that's kind of how it got started.
All right, so when you talk about reformatting, are you reformatting for a 15-minute episode? I mean, because I noticed they vary, your episodes vary between 8 and 9 minutes to 12. I think the longest was maybe 14 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think they go quite that long. Quite that short. I would say that right now, the first 5, we have 2 more that are ready to go. It's in between 13, and our longest is our final episode of this set of 5, and that's actually 20.
20.
Which kind of surprised me that it was that long. It was really only a 15-page script.
So how long? All right. So and how long did it take you to write these? So there's 5 episodes in total.
Right. I reconfigured the first 4. I would say probably had the first drafts within a week. And the 5th episode I wrote was an idea that I'd had, and because we had to replace one of the lead actors, I had to go back to New York. I live in LA, but I shoot the show in New York. And we can talk about that later if it comes up. But I wanted to get more than 1 episode under our belt with the new Bryce before we went on hiatus. So I wrote an episode that took place in 1 room that could be shot in 1 day. That was a good way to sort of leave everybody off. It was kind of a 15-minute version of The Breakfast Club. I took the 5 leads, I put them in 1 room, and you really kind of are getting to know more about them than you ever had, in the first 4 episodes. So it's really sort of a good, not a cliffhanger, but a good way to sort of step away from the show, and then to, I guess, anticipate that when we come back, all these things that we learned about these 5 characters are going to move us forward in the next set of episodes.
So what I've noticed about the show is, first of all, I love the show because it's character and dialogue driven. So these are interesting people, and they're smart people, and I love this that it's in. I teach visual writing, but I mean it's a visual show, but it's also the backstories of these characters starts coming out, and these are interesting people. I love that. But what I've noticed about your show, which is really, I don't know anything about this, so the show is so well paced, it's so well structured, and is that being accomplished in the editing, or is this configured in the writing?
I'll tell you, there's no rhyme or reason in terms of, like, I wish there was a guide out there that said, like there is in terms of a 3-act structure, or what it is now. I think it's a 4-act structure for sitcoms, right, and now it's a 5-act structure for 1-hour episodes. I wish that there was some sort of a formula for writing web series, but there really isn't, because there's no set time for these episodes. You can have a continuing web series that's 1 minute to 2 minutes long. You can have them, I've seen them go up to, a full 25, 26 minutes. Hulu is doing half-hour scripted shows that are going pretty much right up to that point. So there really is no kind of formula. So I have tried to structure things. I've kind of tried to sort of like chop things in half in terms of looking at what the half-an-hour structure is. But I've also kind of learned along the way of like what might need to be built in to help with pacing. I've noticed that, I mean, like, take for instance the little animated interstitials.
Right.
Those were built in as an afterthought because what I thought might play better on the page, just it wasn't working put together visually. So instead of just always cutting to, the apartment shot, the friend shot, the Seinfeld shot, which we do every now and then, I wanted to build something that would also help comment on the action. So I've been writing these little Janice-isms, all of these little advice pieces that are
Right.
coming
Right.
from, that seem to be coming from Janice, and they've actually sort of worked. I mean, for me, they're more of a device, but I feel like we've been able to take them and hopefully make them mean a little something
They,
more.
they take on a sort of a thematic value to the show. I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So just for the people that haven't seen the show, explain the premise of the show.
Okay, well, the show is called Wallflowers, and it's basically about the members of a Manhattan support group for people who can't get dates or sustain relationships. And the four main characters are these four friends who are in their mid 30s. They all live and work in Manhattan. They all have different backgrounds, but where they have found themselves is, they're in their 30s. They're rapidly approaching 40. They're not quite sure why it is that all of their friends around them have, found success or found somebody to spend the rest of their lives with, and they've somehow missed the boat. So they've joined this group, and they've got this sort of ex rock chick flower child who is leading the group, who's a little bit older than them, maybe like a decade older than them, and giving them advice and trying to sort of, run their lives and lead them toward finding their eventual mate. So, I
So
mean, that's pretty much it.
that's the show. That's the show. Um, so the show. So talk about. All right. So let's get into the most interesting. Well, not the most interesting, but the latest thing that you had a press release today about one of the main actor is you're changing the main actor. Um,
Yes.
so this right after that, I'm gonna say, well, this can't be a good thing for a new show to change their main actor. You've handled it in such a funny way, and it sort of almost works for the concept of the show. Um, so talk about that. Why is this happening? Does this is this a does it affect the dynamic of these performers? I mean, what's going on with that?
Um, I, it's something that I don't want to get too much into. There is a public reason why something happens, and there is a private reason why something happens. So we're just going to go with the public reason, which is a scheduling conflict. Um, but we saw fit that we were going to have to wind up replacing this actor, and reshooting episode 4, which has not premiered yet. um, it just, things weren't working out. We'll
Right,
just, we'll
right,
just stay there. And definitely, the character of Bryce it's a really difficult character to try and get across because on the page he's really, really not very pleasant, and that's a hard thing to sort of build your show on, especially when your shows are 15 minutes long or 13 minutes long and you've got a lot of characters. I mean, that's one thing that I think is probably not the best idea to do. Of course, I never do anything the easy way. When you have a show like this, to kind of have 5 main characters and then a fairly large subset of supporting characters, it's very difficult to try and get everybody's stories. One of the things for people who may have seen some of these shows, some of the episodes, I think episode 1 and episode 2 almost sort of feel like one full episode because you're still meeting characters in episode 2. You're getting introduced to Rhonda, who's part of the group. You're getting introduced to Daisy's brother, Todd's boyfriend, all these different characters that you didn't necessarily meet. So I feel like the action doesn't really start happening until episode 3. Um, but I wanted somebody for Bryce that was inherently likable, so that it would be able to sort of smooth down, some of his rougher nastier, less pleasant edges. You have a very, very short time to make a good impression with a character, especially in a web series, and you want people to come back, and it's very difficult to get that audience. I mean, especially with a show that's 13 to 15 minutes long, people click on it, they look at how long it is, and they think, "Oh my God, I've got to sit in front of my computer for that long."
Yeah, I mean, if you don't sell this show in the first 5 minutes, you're not getting nobody's. They're not going to watch. They're not going to watch episode 2. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, absolutely.
it seems like the stake. It's almost like the stakes are a little bit higher for web series because it's easier because we can just go someplace else.
Right. No,
we can be
absolutely.
fickle. Um,
Uh, so you were. I think what we've decided to do was I hired this other actor, and I didn't want him to do what the other actor did. We talked about the way that we could find his Bryce and find what he could bring to this character that was not going to be a copy of what the previous actor did, and how we were going to be able to make it work. Um, I'm very curious next week to see what happens and to see what the reaction is from the general public as opposed to the fan base of the first Bryce.
right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's not something I would recommend, and it's not something that I decided to do lightly. It was sort of I had plans for this character, and to write the character out after 3 episodes and start with a new character just seemed impractical to me. And it is an ensemble show, so I feel like it's not the Bryce Hunter show.
Right.
And so I hope that people haven't totally fallen in love with this particular person, that they'll be able to accept him. And I think if they can't, I think the change, the portrayal is so different that I think it'll be easy to think of him as a completely new character.
A different character, right? Well, I think that you've handled the initial change brilliantly today. I thought that was ingenious, and I think this is something that's happened in television, and you comment on that. There was the two parents.
Did you have a question, Joseph?
Yeah,
Yes,
yes.
it wasn't really a question, it's more of a comment. One of the things that I've come to realize, especially in transmedia or any form of media in general, when you have a story, is that people like continuity.
Mm-hmm.
They like because they become attached to an image or a character, and they relate a person's name to that character. So when you change them up, it gets really difficult in order to have a new face take the name of somebody else that's already you follow. It's
Yeah.
continuity. It's a rough thing to get into.
Yeah.
I mean, so that was a decision, though, not to change the character, not to change the name of.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I felt like I would have to take a lot of unnecessary time to rewrite and come up with all of these things. Again, you only have a very short amount of time, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Joseph. It's an absolute fear, and you're absolutely right. It is a thing that absolutely needs to be worried about. But when you have a show that's anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes, and you aren't able to keep producing the way that a regular network would be able to do, and you do have to go on smaller hiatuses, or longer hiatuses, I should say, with smaller number of episodes, then to take the time to sort of like backtrack out of the 3 episodes that and to do this path, I think eats up a lot of valuable real estate, and you want to be able to keep those viewers coming back, and to sort of back your way out of a particular storyline or a setting, and that would probably wind up making it even less familiar to them, because you've set up all these different characters around. It would be different if it was something like I Love Lucy, where Lucy was the main character, and my God, if you lost Lucy, what would you do? But because this is an ensemble show, I felt like the smaller risk was to replace him after 3 episodes, rather than write a new character.
I think it's a gamble that I think we're going to watch, because I think it's interesting that we have the benefit of watching Karen's life right now go through this. I think it's an investment in the show that you're not shutting down the show based on that you're saying, I believe in the show, I believe in these other characters, I believe in myself, I believe in the writing. The show's going to carry on. the show must go on. I have to figure out how to keep the show going. So I think that there is, I mean, Charlie Sheen. I mean, we see shows that survive without them. This is an interesting approach. I think it could work. I think this is something that I think what makes this show stand out, I think, is the writing, and I think that's what's going to keep the viewers coming back. That's my opinion. Why New York actors? Why shoot it in New York when you are an LA guy? The industry's in LA. You are Mr. LA. Why New York?
Well, again, I don't like to do anything the easy way. I know it was. I felt like
you were born in Florida. You moved to you went to school in New York, and then you're in. Right. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, the good thing is that I do have a community of people in New York. So I shot a large portion of Joe Bryant, the documentary, in New York, so I had a support system in terms of that. I had a great DP. I had a great crew that were based there. Also, my family lives there, so it's not like I'm having to hang out in hotels while I'm there. But I felt like the show just had a New York vibe about it. I didn't think that this show would work with the kind of writing and the kind of characters if it was set in LA. LA is a much, much different vibe, and I felt there's no place in the world like New York for that kind of combination of romantic wistfulness and jadedness, which I think all of the characters have. I think the characters are very jaded, but if they didn't have that particular piece of sort of romantic wistfulness about them, then they wouldn't be going to these meetings. They may not want to admit it to themselves, but they want to make a change in their lives. Otherwise, they wouldn't be taking this step. And I really think that that's what New Yorkers are all about. They have this hard, cynical edge to them, but if you scratch them deep enough, you'll find a romantic.
So all the actors are New York. They're all stage actors, basically. You picked.
They are, yeah, and that's I wanted to work with stage actors. I worked for the Schubert organization for 10 years. When I lived in New York, it got me through college and grad school and beyond. And and I knew a lot of actors. I didn't know these people personally. I think maybe one actor in the entire thing is somebody that I knew beforehand. And I just, but I knew of them, and I knew their work, and I knew that these were people who had a great discipline, and didn't necessarily have the on-screen exposure, but would be able to, another thing that you really need is you need people who are prepared. When you're shooting a show like this, we did 4 episodes in 6 days, and you need actors that are going to bring that shit every single take, because I can't afford to do 6, 7, 8 takes, and so you need people who are prepared, and I think that the most prepared actors out there are people who have that theater discipline.
I think it showed. I think it was an event. It was a gamble that sort of paid off. These actors really shine. I think that if they're not known names, they will be known. I think
I hope so.
I think they're all. So you graduated. Tell us your story, Karen, because I didn't get a chance to do that. You graduated at NYU, with aspirations to be a filmmaker. You made you made a film, and you shot a film. So what is the goal? I know you don't want to make documentaries. I know, and I think you're a brilliant documentary filmmaker, and I hope that everybody gets a chance to see Joe Bryant. It's a beautiful, important film to see. And I hope that you do more documentary work. I know it's a hard living, but are you hoping to do more? Is Wallflowers a springboard for more television, or do you want to do more film? Where does this go?
I would love to do more television, but here's the thing: is I really think that in 2 to 3 years, these kinds of shows are really going to be the norm. I think you're going to see a lot more networks like Hulu. I mean, look at even Crackle. Has a good dozen of these kinds of web series that have more, better production value than a lot of television shows on cable. I mean, it's really impressive. But I really think that this is where the medium is moving. Especially, you can't. people are not sitting down and watching primetime television the way that they used to. I mean, the DVR saw to that,
Right.
but also people have changed the way they are ingesting content, and they are ingesting more and more content on the web, on their computers, on their phones, iPads, things like that. And so I think that, until, I mean, even the networks see it, and they've loosened up a little bit, with making some of their television shows available to watch remotely, but not all of them. But I
Do
think
you think the
that
best writing right now is television?
I do. I do think the best writing is television, and not necessarily network. I mean, meaning like the big five.
Right.
I think that some of the, AMC has amazing writing. Mad Men. Breaking Bad. It's not a show that I particularly love, but I absolutely respect the writing on it. Um, I think there are definitely some network stuff. There's some great stuff happening on Showtime. HBO is sort of, I think, lost its golden hue. Hopefully, it will get it back, but it's still doing stuff that deserves to be seen.
Yeah, I know you're not a fan of Girls, but I think it's I think it's an innovative show, and it's sort of pushing. Yeah. Tony mentioned Blip TV. I know Wallflowers is on Blip TV. Explain what Blip TV is.
It is. Oh shoot! I didn't realize people have been
Yeah,
like
people are
asking.
making comments on the side. I'm sorry.
Oh damn! I'm sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. Let me just really quickly catch up with these to see if anybody. Omar, I agree. Better at the beginning of the show than later on the series. So Blip TV. There are, I would say, like a good handful, like maybe like a half dozen to 10 of these uh, sort of internet networks. There's Blip TV, there's Coldcast, there's JSTV, I think it's called. There's Daily Motion, which is more of a European YouTube. And of course, then there's also YouTube, which is developing its own channels. There's My Damn Channel. A lot of these are curated. But up until, a few months ago, you could pretty much just put your show up on there and they didn't really care. From what I've heard, I mean, I didn't, I've just, when I applied to Blip, I did research and I heard a lot of great things about Blip. You did have to submit your show to them. Although I have to say, I sent them my pilot, and within 10 minutes, I got an email back from them saying, yes, you're approved. And so I highly wondered if anybody had actually really sat down to watch it, or whether they just saw that it wasn't, me trying to sell something for 10 minutes, and that it actually, had a structure to it. So, and they approved it. But just
So the good news and bad news with something like that is they're hungry for content, but maybe
Mhm.
maybe the quality of some of this stuff isn't what it could be.
I agree, and I wonder if that is just that some of those are grandfathered in.
Yeah.
Look, I've seen there's good and there's bad stuff for everything, and of course, it's not just comedy shows. They've got sci-fi channels, they've got drama channels, they've got unscripted content. They've got a lot of different branches to.
Network television has a lot to be worried about, I would think.
I agree. I agree. And the great thing is you can sit and watch these anytime you want to, and just for having to sit through one tiny little 15 to 30-second commercial beforehand.
And,
Um,
and let me just sort of get you to harness. Let me get you to focus for students
sure.
that are thinking about writing for television. Right now, maybe it shouldn't be I want to write for NBC. Maybe doing what Karen Turner is doing, getting some funding, getting some backing, writing a great show, and shooting a great pilot, and getting it on a platform like Blip TV is the way to go. Would you?
I agree. I absolutely agree. Like I said before, I think this is definitely the wave of the future. But even if you want it for a calling card, in order to show what you can do as a writer or as a director, or as a show creator, I think that the great thing about, and one of the reasons why I decided to do this show, was I didn't need anybody's permission.
Right.
You know, I went out there and I mean, this show was relatively expensive to produce, but that was my choice to do it. I know a lot of people who are out there, and I know that that there's a great film community where you all are, and I
Right.
know that just from meeting the people that I met last year at the film festival, people band together and people will work on each other's projects for free and they'll pitch in, and
I
I
mean,
think
let me just stop you. I believe that we, as a universe full sail, we have the means to do this, and we
mhm,
really need to embrace this in the most significant way. I think because I think it's where young writers can really make their mark. So
absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, do not wait for somebody to tell you, here's the money to go do this, or your script is good enough, or, I give you the permission. You don't need it to do a web series. You really don't. And my God, what is the risk to put your work out there and see, even if it's just to get some feedback from an audience that aren't your friends and your parents. You know what I mean? Because people will watch and they will tell you if they like it or they don't like it, and what's the risk.
I mean, and I think
Um,
that's what I come away with watching Wallflowers is you know I like you a lot. I respect you a lot. As you know, it's like, oh my god, this guy can write. This guy can direct. This guy knows how to work with actors. This guy knows how to pick actors. This guy knows how to edit. This is Kieran Turner's baby. I mean, you are the writer, director, edit. So if this doesn't work, it's all your fault. So I mean, it does work. So it is a great showcase of you, of your writing, of your show running ability. I had Angela had a question here: is what is your strategy for developing a fan base for your web series? That's a great question.
it is a great question. Um, I I initially started out with a PR person that I'd hired just to sort of help me service some press releases. But they weren't, and I knew this going in, weren't terribly well versed in the world of web series. So we got a little bit of stuff out, but I can't really say that if I had done it on my own that I wouldn't have gotten the same stuff done. There are people who are starting to emerge as web series experts who are helping creators get their work out there. Um, I what I've been doing, I've been on Facebook, I've been on Twitter. I send out a press release every single week with every new episode to every blog, every blogger that writes about web series. You go online, you find out who in the community is talking about web series, is informing the public about web series. They may not be People Magazine and Us Magazine and and even IndieWire, but there is a burgeoning community of these people who are coming up, and this is what they are interested in. And they will write about your show if they like it, and if they don't, you keep on and you keep on and you keep on. Um, One thing that I am aiming to do with the next set of episodes, and I am reluctant to sort of jump into this whole hog, but it is something I think that needs to be done, is I want to start casting some new characters, even if they're just one or two episode guest stars, of people who have a little bit more. I don't even want to say name value. I'm not even talking about going out and getting TV stars, but is a whole subset of celebrities or actors or personalities who have YouTube fame and who have internet fame. And if they make an
And those
appearance,
people are more important than a name actor, right? Because
absolutely,
they've got the
absolutely.
audience, right? Right.
And the most important thing about them is that they, unlike an actor, are willing to go out there and help you with that heavy lifting, help you by retweeting and refacebooking and saying, hey, I'm going to be on this show, and you guys all need to tune in. I've been having a bit of an issue with my actors, because actors who come from theater, or who don't come from this particular world, they don't understand that they've got to get as involved with helping to push the show. And I have had, I'm not going to say arguments, but I have had a couple of disagreements with actors, and I start to look at people and I think, okay, what else are you bringing to the show?
Right.
And if you're not going to be part of this, because this is very much a grassroots project, all of these are, you need to be very careful with the team that you surround yourself with, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. These are people that need to be in with you for the long haul. They need to be helping you and getting the word out. Otherwise, the show's going to die on the vine. But you have to give it time. Do not give up after the first episode. I will tell you that I was somebody, a year ago who never watched any of these things, and I discovered an enormous amount of shows that had 1 or 2 seasons already under their belts, and watched all of them like, in a matter of a day or 2 days.
Binge watching.
Yeah. Sorry?
Binge watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is it is absolutely possible for you to make a show and it, gets discovered and gets discovered and gets discovered, and the audience builds slowly. And that's another beautiful thing about doing an internet show, doing a web series, is that you're not, you don't have to worry about making your, quota in terms of viewers where you're going to get the hook.
Right. So you're not beholden to a Scantron or Nielsen rating system. So you have the luxury of building an audience over time. How do you know though when you are? How do you gauge success though? And I think that you've had some a lot of really good critical press. I believe, right, that has been really positive. So that's a great momentum builder. But how do you? I mean, at the end, how do you know if this was successful? I think it is successful because it looks good. It's a great show. The quality is there. Just in that, it's a successful show. But how is it? When will you say this has been a success? I think it goes to Tony's question of, have you at least made your money back?
Yeah, no, and I think one thing is you cannot go into this hoping that you're going. I don't know that anybody has really yet found a way to monetize a web series or to design a web series model that is going to profit its creator. Because, for instance, Blit Television. I have a commercial in front of each of my episodes, and I do split the revenue. But I can tell you that I've got, a 5-figure viewership. Just in terms of, unique viewers for the content that I have up on Blip TV, and so far I've made $30 for a 5-figure amount of views. So if you're thinking, you do not start monetizing, really making a profit until your stuff's in the millions, and that you're talking about going viral and stuff like this. Web series don't go viral.
Doesn't go viral.
Watching a cat hanging from a tree goes viral. Watching somebody vomit on somebody else, that goes viral. That's what you're going to make money on. You're not going to make your money on web series. Joseph.
Yes, I've seen, let's see, a couple of years back, this guy who did his own version of the Legend of Zelda series more. He did a Flash video. He used, whatever program. He did so well that so many people were watching it, and there were people with money that would actually donate to his PayPal account, which directly connected to his bank account. And that's how he made money, was by donations, and it helped him continue his work.
No, absolutely. Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tony. Go ahead, Tony. You want to add to it?
Yeah. So basically, what this series that you're doing now, this web series, is to get your name out there, to get recognition.
I think so. And I'm developing a second web series that I don't necessarily want to shoot, with my own particular money, but I'm hoping to take as a package to a channel like Hulu or a channel like Crackle, that are funding these shows, as opposed to, my, coming with a finished product. And I think that being able to do something like this and showing that I can do a show on a particular budget and have it look a certain way and have it, develop a certain way and have, a particular, number of fans, that are tuning in every week, is something that is going to help me make something else or make something bigger.
Do you think there's a possibility? I know that. See, we deal with, I deal with students that are either game writers, script writers, graphic novel writers, or or episodic television writers. And one of the things that we sort of talk about is is monetizing, something that you're giving away. And I think that one of the things that we have found is some type of merchandise. Is that something that you've thought about? Selling DVDs, selling shirts that say Wallflowers. I mean, is that
It
something?
is. I feel like you have to be very careful with the timing of that kind of thing, because you could wind up sitting around with 5,000 Wallflowers branded sippy cups, in your spare room and wondering how you're going to get rid of them. So, no, absolutely. We're going to be launching. Oh, I hate to even say it, a Kickstarter campaign. At the end of May, I'm going to New York in about 10 days to shoot with my cast, Kickstarter video.
Why do you hate to say that?
Well, just because I feel like it's, first of all, I feel like it's another fucking Kickstarter campaign. Who cares? Jesus Christ, go and sell a fucking kidney if you want to make the show. And also, I'm very dubious about it because of the way that, yet again, Hollywood has co-opted something that is supposed to be, that was started to help the people who really need the help.
All right, so Kieran, I know this is off topic, but we've discussed this in my class, and we addressed this on my Facebook page, on my the class Facebook page. But the Zach Braff, the Veronica Mars, the Arrested Development, why is that bad for Kieran Turner? Why is that bad for Wallflowers? Why is that bad for my students? Why is that bad for everybody outside of Hollywood?
The same reason why we can no longer get into Sundance. For the same reason why probably none of us will be able to sell a film to IFC or Sundance Channel, because we are now being priced out of the market. Hollywood is going to take Kickstarter and they're going to co-opt it like they've co-opted everything else. What's going to wind up happening, and this is just my opinion, but I've seen it happen before, is that Kickstarter is going to want to throw their lot in with the projects that are going to have the highest profiles, the biggest possibility of making their goals and their large goals, because of course Kickstarter gets 5%. So as these studios start putting more and more projects on Kickstarter, which do you think are going to be the projects that are going to get the lion's share of exposure, of attention, of Kickstarter love? Not the ones that need it the most, but these higher profile. I mean, sure, everybody would much rather say, oh, I did blah blah blah, with for Kristen Bell or for Zach Braff rather than for Kieran Turner. I get it. I can't I can't blame the people who are donating, or who are contributing. But I feel like these particular things ought to be for people who don't have any other way.
Right.
Not because you don't want to expose yourself and put in your own $2 million and wind up making a profit. I think a friend of ours, Tim, said it best when on Facebook the other day when he said, I won't be angry with Zach Braff if he winds up selling this film, gives a bunch of money to his cast and crew and participation, and then takes that initial $2 million and winds up donating it to a bunch of projects that actually really.
I mean, that would be wonderful. That would be.
It would be wonderful, but it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, right? I mean, and what do you say? All right, so the other argument is, well, these people weren't going to give to the other Kickstarter campaigns anyway. These are Zach Braff or Veronica Mars fans, and this is a way of gauging their market. This is a way of gauging, their value.
I don't mean to single out Zach Braff and Rob Thomas. It's just that it is a symptom or it's of the coming epidemic, of the coming projects that are going to wind up swallowing us all. You're right. I don't know that a Veronica Mars fan or a Zach Braff fan would give me 5 cents for my project.
Right.
But if we, as I said, if we start seeing that this is what's being pushed, it's possible that somebody's not going to find out about, any one of a number of very deserving projects that if they looked into might decide that they do want to, donate to it because when you go onto Kickstarter, this is what you're being bombarded with.
Right. A lot of my students, and my students are very young, so they think that sort of Kickstarter is you've won the lottery, or this is like this money from heaven is going to come and fund your projects, and it's a pretty involved. You have to have sort of a wide net, a pretty good network of fans. I think that your Kickstarter campaign is probably a smarter way of going about it because you've got these 5 episodes that people can watch. We can see what you can do. It's not a question of can Kieran pull this off? We see that you can pull it off. Now it's just, do we want to fund season 2 of this? I think that gives you a little more credibility, maybe.
I agree. Full disclosure, I did a Kickstarter campaign once before for my documentary, and it was a complete botch. And I don't blame anybody for that but myself. I was very reluctant to put out any footage too early, so I didn't have a video. I was relying on a very, very small fan base of the musician, who I made the documentary about. And they did give. I asked for way too much for what I was willing to put out there. I'm not talking about in terms of rewards, but just in terms of exposure and information. So I am nervous about doing it again, but you're right. With this particular kind of a Kickstarter campaign, there's a known commodity to it. You can see that we're not going to take the money and run off to Aruba with it and go party. We're in the middle of a story of several storylines, and we are dedicated to finishing. To continuing with them, I should say, not finishing.
So in the next, I want to keep you for about another 10, 15 more minutes. I want to open this up to more questions from my students. If there's more questions, either ask your question or type your question. But
I'm paying attention on the side, so go ahead and type.
Yeah. So and give these students some advice on what they need to do to be writers in the entertainment industry. What would your advice be, Kieran?
In terms of for web series or just?
I'd say for filmmaking, for web series, for you're out in LA. You see this. What is required?
I would say of course, everybody says it, keep writing, write as much as you possibly can. I think it's bullshit to tell somebody to, every single writer to sit down and be disciplined and write, for an hour a day. People don't do that. Figure out what you're passionate about, what stories you want to tell, and try to find some way to give yourself, even if it's a self-imposed deadline, if it's a writer's group where you have to produce every week and you have to turn, material in, or go to another class. When I moved out here, I was well past, the college and grad school age, but I started taking classes at UCLA. I took night classes in television writing, mostly because I wanted to give it a try, but I wanted to have a structure that was going to require me to finish something, to produce, and to keep producing, and to keep refining. And I learned a lot about my writing, but I also learned about television writing in general from, being able to read other people's projects. So I can't put enough emphasis on being part of a writing community, whatever it is, because you learn as much from looking to see what other people are doing and how they're doing it, and what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, and getting feedback from them as you are, working on your own material.
Do you think they need to be in LA?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think that you're probably being in Florida and being in the Full Sail community is probably a better, place to be, because you are surrounded by a bunch of like-minded folks who all have different talents and different disciplines. And I think that it's a great way to get something produced, again, without having to wait for the permission of somebody else in order to fund your project, or to say, oh, this is really good, I'm going to do this, or lock it up in development hell, what have you. It's very easy to get sucked into that kind of mentality being in a larger entertainment-based community like LA or New York, where you walk around with stars in your eyes. And that, to me, is the worst, is just the worst way to go about it. I'm from the school of just do it. Just do it, get it done, figure out how to get it done, and figure out how you're going to learn from it, and do better the next time. And I think that the kind of environment that you're in at Full Sail really would help promote that. And if it doesn't work out, then you've got an amazing experience from doing it. I think probably the best experience I ever had when I was at NYU as a grad student was we were all forced to make a certain number of small films each semester and each year, but we also had to work at everybody else's, and we got together in crews, and we each did different. We each took different roles in each person's film, and so I think there's no better way to learn than by getting that practical experience.
By doing it, right? And I mean, I tell my students I want them to be sending their stuff out to whether it's. I mean, my students are writing different types of things. They're writing short fiction pieces, so I have them sending out to literary magazines. But also, there's a lot of script contests and stuff like that. Do you have any words of advice about that? Did you try that? Have you?
Yes, I have tried that. Not too much, I would say. So I'm not really sure that I can speak to it. I don't necessarily. I mean, I've sent out a couple to a couple of competitions, years ago.
Yeah.
But also the kind of stuff that I write doesn't necessarily lend itself to winning. I would say if you're going to do it, take a look at what the last 5 winners, what their scripts were about. Right. Find out what the tastes of these competitions are, and make sure that what you're writing, it doesn't have to mirror it, but could possibly be considered. I mean, if you're writing, some sort of navel-gazing Sundance indie, and you're going to send it to something that's awarding mainstream high concept kind of projects, then it's probably going to be a waste of your time, and not the best use of your time or your money, because they all have entrance fees. But if you're going to submit to anything, do your research. Figure out where you fit. Don't try to fit yourself into something else. And if you try to do that, I think you're only going to, if you try to write something because because you think it's what people want to see, or you think it's what's going to take you to that next step, as opposed to something that you're passionate about, I don't think you're going to succeed. I think it's going to come through. Especially if you're starting out, especially if you're just starting out. I think that if you've got a lot of work under your belt and you've worked at a lot of different mediums, it's probably a little bit easier to be a quote-unquote writer for hire. But as you're developing your skills, stick to something that is going to make you happy and is going to make you excited to write it.
So let's if there's any questions, let me open this up. Is there any questions during this? Otherwise, we can wrap this up. I want to really thank you, Karen, for doing this.
No problem. I think Tony's got a
Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if you have attempted to shop any of your projects to the major networks, or if you're finding that doing it this way is a little bit easier.
I haven't. I'll tell you, just in terms of my television experience, when I was taking the classes at UCLA, I wrote some specs, and I actually did enter a couple of them into some competitions, and also there are emerging writers programs. I think they're still around. I know Disney has one. I know Warner Brothers had one. I don't know if they still do. I apologize that I'm not completely totally up on this, but it's really, obviously, it's really easy to find these things out. And that's kind of what I based, my focus on, instead of like coming up with a pilot, to try and shop around. So no, I haven't. I have shopped film scripts around, and try to get certain things made. To little or no success, which I'm sure, if you scratch any writer anywhere, they'll have many of those kinds of stories. But I've always feel like if you don't have connections, and if you don't have, a way to get your foot in the door, making something that people can sit down and ingest in a short period of time that isn't going to break your piggy bank, is the best way to try and get attention. people don't want to sit down and read a 90-page script or a 60-page script. If they don't know who you are, they're going to throw it over to a reader. And I don't mean to be negative about it. I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm just trying to figure out a way for everyone to approach it the smartest way and the most economical way, so that you're not sitting there again waiting on the permissions of others. I guess I can't stress that highly enough, Christopher. That's sort of my mantra.
I've
Yeah.
actually I've been in the business for about 5 years, so I'm a little familiar with it. I have written several projects. I'm an actor as well, so I've done some other stuff. But I live in Atlanta, and a lot of the projects that are going on here, and it's still really new market here, so a lot of it is very amateurish.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm trying to figure out a way where I can actually get my projects seen.
Are you talking about a particular script? Is it television? Is it film? Is it?
I have actually written uh, and developed completely one full episode of a TV pilot sitcom, but
Interesting.
it's just a matter of
Uh-huh.
getting it in front of someone.
You know what? I actually want to bring up an example for you guys to go out and research, to go out and check out if I can, just because this was an interesting way to do this. It's a web series called Husbands, and I think the website is Husbands the Series, but you'll find it. It's all over the place. They're on different formats. What they did was they took a half an hour pilot script and they basically chopped it up into 90-second to 2-minute webisodes, and they did 10 of them. And when you put them all together, it was a pilot for a television show. Now, granted, they had Jane Espenson, as one of the creators. If you're familiar with Jane, she's written, like she's currently on Once Upon a Time, but she's got a great TV pedigree. But the people that she joined up with, and who I think were the brain children of the idea and of the series, were two people who had no former writing credits, or they came from nothing. They approached her at Comic-Con. They told her about the idea. They wouldn't leave her alone, and she decided to partner with them. But I think that that's also an interesting way to try and figure out what kind of an audience you've got, but tease them with little things. So that's also a great idea and a great way. And now you've got a pilot, and now they're in development for this show with the CW.
Right, right.
But
That's awesome. I've actually considered doing that.
yeah, I think if that's what you've got, if that's an idea that you've got, I think it's a great way to do it, and I think it's a really smart way. I see somebody just mentioned Meetup.com, which I think I've just started to explore as well, and they've got a lot of groups for, especially if you're interested in writing content for the web and putting together content for the web. Meetup.com has a lot of great groups. They also have a lot of writing groups, which again is another way that you can get into getting yourself a self-imposed discipline. To getting projects done.
We're sort of skipping over film festivals too. I think that there's a lot of festivals out there that are interested in short films. And I think that if you guys are producing short film, writing scripts for shorts, and getting filmmakers to shoot your, I would really encourage you guys to start entering festivals. Without a Box as a great resource to find these. I'm a festival guy, so I really push the festival, and I think it's a great way of meeting other people out there doing the same thing. It's a great way of networking. It's just like the cons, sort of. I mean, it's sort of the equivalent of any of the cons, actually. So I think festivals are another way. I don't know if it works for a pilot episode of a show, but I think what would be NA?
Well, let me ask you though, Chris. I'm not meaning to disagree with you, but in terms of a writer for a short film, don't you think, or have you found that that's more of a director's medium, or in terms of directors get more attention than writers do?
I want my writers to be directors too. So, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it is a film, it is a director's world basically at these festivals. But I think that if you're a writer and you can tell a story, learn the craft of filmmaking too, and get your stuff out there.
Or get a damn good DP and tell them what to do.
Exactly. That's and several. That used to be an assignment in my classes to figure out. I didn't give you any equipment; just shoot something with your iPhone or make a Logette style montage. I don't care; just make something visual. And I was blown away by the results of giving no equipment and watching what students would do with nothing. So I totally believe in. I think that everybody should be sort of. I want everybody to be Kieran Turner. Really, I want everybody to do. To be creating their own content. And taking their.
Yeah, no, I understand. John Rhines has a question.
Yes. About directing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John. I feel like I'd be an excellent director.
How do you make the jump to director?
Yeah. Good question, John.
It is a good question. There was no schooling. He just did it. Well, I think that you are living in an age right now where it's never been easier to be a director because of the equipment or the lack of equipment that it takes. I mean, it's very easy to go out and so many of these cameras that you can get for under $1,000 or borrow one from somebody who has one that all shoot in HD. And you just keep you can edit it on iMovie. I've started to learn iMovie. I work with an editor, with an actual editor on these episodes.
But Final Cut X now is like under $300.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't know how to use that particular program.
Right. And the Blackmagic camera now is $995. So the equipment, we've come to this stage now where the equipment, everybody can make a film. The equipment is there to make So. Yeah. We'll talk about your documentary. You did. This was something that you did show. Here's a great documentary that had huge success on the festival circuit. Where did that end up?
Gosh.
How can my students find Joe Bryant?
Well, we actually are. I'm sort of. I don't want to make a public statement about it, but it's just not like you guys are going to go out and tweet about it. But I do have a distribution deal. The film will be coming out in Europe in the summer, just like VOD and a couple of TV deals. But we are in the midst of signing with a company called Factory 25 for a theatrical and day and date VOD in October, which coincides with the 40th anniversary of the release of Joe Bryant's first album.
Everybody, Google Joe Bryant. Yeah, so everybody go, and I want all my students to do this, and I'll quiz you on it tomorrow. Go Google Joe Bryant AD. Go find everything you can on the web. Find the clips from the film. It'll blow your mind. It's amazing. Angela says she did already. Fascinating stuff. Kieran is a genius documentary filmmaker. I truly hope you make more documentaries. I hope you continue with Wallflowers. I hope we get at least 2-3 more seasons of this. I think this has been fantastic. I hope that I can invite you back to do this because I think this is.
Oh, would love to. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm going to type my email address. If anybody has any questions that occur to them, later on, or something maybe you didn't think about, or you want to follow up something that I said, please feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to. Yes, and you can follow me on Twitter. Twitter is.
And what can they do to help Wallflowers?
Just social media. If you like the show, if you want your friends to see it, if you want to tell people about it, find us and just keep posting. Just keep talking about, oh, I saw this great show and I really love it. And I think you'll love it too. And that's really how it's done. It's done just that easily, but it's also difficult.
So go on your Facebook page and link the Wallflower page. Tell your friends about it. That would be a great thing to do. I'll give you extra credit if you do it. Kieran's email is 8tracktape@gmail.com. There he is on Facebook. I'll keep it up let everybody get this. Thank you so much, Kieran, for this. This was absolutely wonderful.
I really enjoyed myself.
And this is very, very valuable. Thank you so much.
Thanks, folks. Have a good night. All right, take care. Bye.
I'll hang out here just so everybody can get the information. Awkward hangout here. That was really, 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 really fantastic. I'm so glad I did that.
Got Christopher Ramsey's here
Yeah, this
drinking
is
out of
great.
cups.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsey.
Wow, we had 12 people. That's really cool.
Awesome.
John, did you leave? John, thanks for coming. Thanks for doing this. Let me thank everybody. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Chaz. Thank you, Haley from my class. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Kate, my wife. MJ Brewer, Omar, Tara, Tony. Thank you all. That was really, really, really great. All right, guys. Good night. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for doing this.
All right, man.
Hey, Christopher.
Yes.
Hey, I wanted to go over this with you real quick before you go. I got my assignment in for week 2 done. My first one. And finally got turned in right before class. Like I said, I've been busy as crazy and keep myself together. So I still have the other one I got to do. This one is going to be a doozy on me. I'm going to try to get it done tonight. Like I said, I'm West Coast, so
Right.
the time difference really kills me. So I'm just like, I'm doing everything I can, try to get as much done as I can with the time I got.
Okay. All right.
So,
All right.
I still have that other assignment and whatever.
Very cool.
I would tell you because you told me to let you know if I need more time, I might need it for the second one.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Take care.